Good afternoon. I'm Joey Only. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Caribou Kung Fu Talk today. If you haven't already before, please subscribe. Hit like if at the end of the video you think that it deserves at least a thumbs up. It helps me with the algorithms. Not too long ago, Dave from Wing Chun Mind Force YouTube channel posted a video that I thought was very thought-provoking. So this in no way is a response in any way, more like inspired by Dave's video recently. And I feel like we've been kind of talking to each other a little bit. I got the impression from your last video that you were thinking of me, and I've been thinking of you. Dave was talking about a Miyamoto Musashi passage called The Gaze and Strategy. I'm going to read you this passage. The gaze should be large and broad. This is the twofold gaze. Perception and sight. Perception is strong and sight is weak. In strategy, it is important to see distant things as if they were close and to take a distance view of close things. It is important in strategy to know the enemy's sword and to not be distracted by insignificant movements of this sword. You must study this. The gaze is the same for single combat and for large-scale strategy. It is necessary in strategy to be able to look to both sides without moving the eyeballs. You cannot master this ability quickly. Learn what is written here. Use this gaze in everyday life and do not vary it whatever happens. I really took Miyamoto Musashi to heart when I read him first many decades ago. And I did practice this. I developed a number of ways to practice this and a number of places and timings, and understood the usefulness of this very quickly. Here's ways that you could say practice this gaze. So the idea is that you're going to slightly unfocus your eyes and not really pay attention to anything. So people often say, I pay attention to the chest, I pay attention to the eyes, I pay attention to the hands. But I think if you pay attention to those things, you tend to focus on them and then get distracted necessarily from the bigger picture. So I find it almost better to be looking through an opponent, almost like they aren't even there. The sort of gaze you take is to slightly unfocus and not look at any one thing in particular. So for example, in this unfocused state, I can move my fingers and I can see it on the monitor, but I'm not looking at it. I'm very aware of where and how it's moving. I can see that image clearly, but I'm not staring at it. I'm not focusing in on it. In fact, my periphery is able to see everything at once while I'm in that unfocused state. Ways that I practice this. When I lived in the city, I found it very difficult sometimes to be in very busy places. And I would use this sort of gaze as a coping technique to handle how busy everything actually was. I found it very overwhelming. I'm quite sensitive to all the bustling and noise and consistent, every direction things coming. I'd sit in a restaurant and I would let myself go into that unfocused place and then try to see everything happening in the restaurant at once. Maybe I pretend that I'm looking at something so I wasn't staring in someone's direction in an uncomfortable way. But really, I would be cognizant of the entire room. I'd see at Bond's off Broadway, for example, I'd see Bond over there doing his sales and people talking to him, more people coming in the door, people walking around outside smoking cigarettes. I'd watch the waitresses filling up coffee here and there. I could see it all at once happening. I would try this again on city buses. Again, and here's a place where I would step it up to another advancement. And that's another thing Dave was talking about, how in Wing Chun, using your imagination is very helpful. So I would tend to use my imagination to envision myself in space, as an object in space. We tend to see ourselves through this lens only, through outside of our eyeballs. So I try to get a comprehension of myself within the space that I'm in. And again, that would often involve unfocusing the eyes and letting everything happening around me and try to be aware of it. And then what I would try to do is the bus is going down the street and I'm sitting there, I try to be aware of things happening outside of the bus simultaneously. So then you have vehicle next to you here. And then for a split second, I just try to imagine what the person in that vehicle is seeing from their perspective, direction wise. And then as I'm going along, maybe I try to have brief flashes through the eyes of other people on the bus, use my imagination to try to gain that space, and perhaps even have almost a visualization of myself from their perspective. See the cars going this way, get the visualization quickly. See the cars going that way, get the visualization. Then there's buildings outside beyond that we're going by, and get the visualization. And to do any more than just a split second of imagining isn't very helpful, because after a split second, you're really just making it up. What's going on in there? Well, maybe the words he's reading in the newspaper in there are this. Well, you don't know. You just want to kind of have a flash of what that space is and what people in that space might be seeing. As you're traveling, try to imagine now the next street over and all the things happening inside there. And sometimes I'll just flash around quickly and try to have like an X-ray vision almost of the fact that the buildings aren't just these flat surfaces that we see as we're going by them, but inside them are cubicles of things happening and people moving and lights on and TVs and people at computers. And then you try to imagine the street beyond that, and the street beyond that. Well, you're still on the bus seeing everything on the bus happening and still seeing all this. And then trying to imagine, I'd be in Vancouver because that's where where my city bus experiences mostly were. And so then I try to imagine where's Surrey, and then here's the ocean over here, and then Victoria's back beyond there, and almost take a large distance view and see Calgary and Edmonton and almost imagine everything happening in there, and then Toronto, everything's happening there. See the whole continent, see the planet in space, see the moon, see the sun, see the whole solar system in its largeness, see everything in the cosmos, see yourself as an object in space. These are helpful thoughts to gathering the ability to see broadly, to see everything at once happening, to know a lot of things from all the information you're taking in, and allow that information to come in easily without tons of front brain trying to have conscious thought and sort it out. That's the game, right? Enlarging your perception. But again, always just trying to see everything happening around you at once, trying to unfocus your eyes, trying to take a distanced and a near view of things simultaneously. Try to see the larger space and all the 3-dimensional and then perhaps 4-dimensional aspects of it. And use that imagination to your advantage so that you have a larger, bigger. So for some of you, this will be very, very difficult. There are specific regions of the brain that some people have. Hippocampus is definitely what I'm talking about. Spatial awareness is going to be easier for some people than it is for others. And that's, you can work on it and you can get better at it. But for some people, they'll never be as good as other people. So when you have friends who don't know, who are very bad at directions, I always say now, try to be easy on them, because the grid world we live in and the GPS, everything mapped and easy to find, and Siri, how do I get to here? It doesn't encourage people who don't have abilities in these things to actually develop them. And these are skills that we're losing that typically humans had more and more, which is the ability to see themselves within a bigger picture. When you're in the forest and on the land, these are very handy things to have now at your disposal, to see many things happening at once and be aware of many things, be able to listen, hear, not focus on one thing necessarily. But then go into times of focus where you scan very clearly and then let it go back to unfocus. So this is how the warrior tends to view things. We talk about that 1,000-yard stare, and that's certainly something in Wildfire I tend to use and access a lot, where people will be talking and doing things, but I am paying attention to them entirely, but also paying attention to everything else that's going on at the same time. And Then my crew will often say, boss, you seem to, how did you know that? And I was like, well, elementary, dear Watson. Trying to have all your senses open and able to take in information and allow that information to sit there without judgment, so that you're not just guessing until you need that whole picture filled in. How to see, how to visualize this 1,000-yard stare, they call it. It's that way to see through the eyes of the warrior. Traumatized people tend to go into this, but that's because traumatized people are very much at the mercy of their fight or flight reflexes of their nervous system. So they tend to access some of those abilities to not necessarily pay too much attention to what's going on in the foreground, because they have a nervous reason to have a larger picture of the world around them. So I just want to encourage you and say, keep on practicing. And when you are in your Nimtao state, if you can get there, try to see things from a bigger picture. Try to see outside of yourself. Try to have an out-of-body experience with your imagination. I mean, it's not magic, or you're not gonna actually float away. That's like they do in some kung fu TV show and commune with your master across the ocean. No, nothing like that's possible. We know this, but using all the places of our brains to help fill in the details of the world around us, using more of our brain to take that information and categorize it. Okay, if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll be having more videos with Sifu John Kaufman very soon. Thanks very much for coming around. It's very much summer down where Dave is, and it's very much winter where I am here, but this is what I'm doing. All right, have a good day, everyone. Bye.